Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another discussion video for Final Fantasy XIV. I said I was going to do a few of these, basically talking about all of the things I'm excited for in 5.3, which is set to release sometime probably in July or late July, hopefully not too much closer to August, but we live in hope at this point because COVID-19 is essentially destroying a lot of the plans for a lot of people worldwide, and hopefully we can all recover in a decent sort of time frame, development included for games we love. So in 5.3, some of the things that are really hype for me are the littlest things, right? The smallest little details, the smallest changes usually make the biggest impact. I've said that more times than I care to actually reiterate now, but there's a good reason for that, because they really do have the heaviest weight behind them. And this time around in 5.3, on the 58th letter from A Producer Life, we got just a little hint of some of the quality of life changes to come. But the stuff that really sort of stuck in the back of my mind that people might have already forgotten is the stuff to do with the Party Finder. Now, the Party Finder in Final Fantasy XIV is a wonderful tool allowing you to group with other people. It allows you to group with people cross-server more recently, and it's a really efficient way of putting together a group to actually do content. There are always people that we end up recruiting into our static or other groups that we run with our community, and they're always on other servers. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to just go, hey, I'll create a party, and then you can just join it. Here's the password for that. And then we get people from Louisoire or wherever they may be joining our party on Ragnarok, which always makes me happy. It always makes me smile a little bit that the fact that that's even possible, and the idea that in the future that could be even better, and hopefully one day we get the ability to have cross-world play. Now, whilst cross-world play, cross data center play isn't a thing quite yet, it might be in the future. For the future, no, however, what we do know is in 5.3, there's a few really nice little points that were mentioned at the end of the last live letter that really blow my mind. Firstly, it says a party of players will be able to join another party via the Party Finder. So I'm not sure how significant you realize this is. Say, for instance, you see a group forming for a old Savage mode, or a better example. Say, for instance, you're doing mount farming and you see yourself creating a Shinryu party with members of your free company. You create a party and you have 2 to 3 people that are really excited, and then for whatever reason, you're in the Party Finder for quite some time and people don't seem to be joining you. It's at that point you realize that somebody has already created a group for this and actually has basically what you need. There's a few extra spaces, but basically you could slot into there. Now, previously to the patch, and currently in the game, because the patch isn't out yet at the time of recording, we're still on the 5th of May here, you would have to disband your party or contact that person who's leading the other party and get them to disband and join onto you, or you join onto them individually, person by person. The issues therein with that, half of the time the person will probably not change anything about it. It's still a public Party Finder group, it's up there, and somebody in that interim could have joined and taken one of the spots that was applicable for the role of one of the people in your group. So essentially it is very slow. It relies on people being rather quick with menus, and essentially people are never quick, especially if it comes to the crossplay situation with PlayStation and PC. That's not being cruel to PlayStation users, but a lot of the menuing can be a lot slower and cumbersome for a lot of people than it would be for somebody on PC that has numerous shortcuts enabled, and of course has a much freer access with higher DPI on their mouse to get through their Party Finder. But it's also a damn sight faster, especially if you're in a place with higher population in it, such as Limsa Lominsa. A lot of those menus might lag out, for example, on a PlayStation. It's just one of the facts of life. That's not to say that the PlayStation is a terrible console. It's just that you're always going to be at the whims of very interesting variables, and many of which come down to the hardware of the game itself and the way it runs on your hardware. So ultimately, the ability to join parties of another, group with a party of your own, if it fits, is a really, really awesome thing. Presumably there will be like a notification that somebody wants to join you, or maybe they won't. Maybe if you fulfill the roles that they have allocated for their group and you have 4 people and there's like 2 tanks and 2 healers suddenly join a group, that would be pretty amazing. But it's something that would be completely possible as of 5.3. So a lot of people haven't been talking about this in a big way. I personally think this is one of the biggest changes to just doing content with pugs in the entire game. It's always rather distracting to me when I try to create a group for something and then somebody's already created a group for it, but probably at the same second I tried to make a group and then my group isn't getting the actual people to join it. So in this way, we can sort of close the gap a little bit, and groups can actually get to where they want to go a lot faster, which is more productive for the amount of time that we have to play the game, and ultimately is better for the community as a whole. So I'm massively behind that point. The second point was the option to require 1 player per job will be added to the party finder. Now, this is something that essentially you could kind of force by selecting certain roles, but essentially once you assign certain roles for those slots, they are locked to that particular job or that particular role. There's no way of actually enforcing just every job in the game, just one of each. So in many ways, this is another quality of life change, because essentially if you sign it up to, I want 1 melee, I want 1 ranged physical, and I want 1 magical, that's still not enough. Or if you go, okay, I want a bard, I want a machinist for my physical ranged, you're always going to be leaving out the possibility of a dancer. Now, if that's intentional, that's fine. If you don't want to run with a specific job in the game, then you can totally do that, and that's fine. But this option will allow you to essentially just lock it to, I want 1 of every single job, no doubles. That way we're enabling our limit gauge to be up to level 3 if we're doing relative content that will actually unlock that. And yeah, it's quite a big deal, because the last thing you want is for 2 of something to join, or for you to have to manually set up. So again, it's more quality of life that really impacts the setting up process of a group in Party Finder, and cuts down the time that you have to waste. So anything towards that is a really, really positive change, and something that I'm going to scream from the rooftops of how much I enjoy those sorts of changes. Again, all of this stuff, when the patch finally comes out, will just become second nature. There have been so many quality of life changes in the past in several different expansions, where you basically experienced the game as if it's always been this way. But there are several things come to mind that are heavily game changing that now we just take for granted, and these will be amongst that as well. These will become just as if they'd always been baked in. It's always one of those things where people are going to be like, oh, it'd be great to go and play 1.0 version of Final Fantasy, or even the 2.0 version of Final Fantasy XIV, because even the 2.0 version of Final Fantasy XIV, unfortunately, has significant downfalls in comparison to how it is now. If you were to go back, you would be surprised at the limitation of several things, essentially towards housing, towards glamour systems, you name it, the way that dungeons work, currency. So much has been changed more recently in the past few years. Like, for example, Beast Tribe currency used to be stored in your bags. I don't know how many people remember that, for example, but we took for granted that change, which was very, very minor, where they essentially turned that into a currency tab. We actually have a currency tab now, which is mind-blowing to me still to this day. But these little changes here to the Party Finder are part of a greater thing to come, I think, and I would love to have sort of cross data center play. I know that's something that's completely possible, judging by the fact that we can switch between the servers on the character select screen to any data center, essentially. So, and you can certainly transfer characters, so it's only a matter of time before we get the temporary transfer of characters between data centers. But whether or not you would need to actually visit an aetheryte for that or something, remains to be seen. Quite exciting. And the last point on the miscellaneous slide that I wanted to talk about today relating to Party Finder groups specifically was that players will be able to use the world visit system while in a cross-world party. This is quite a big thing. This allows you to essentially talk to an Aetheryte and teleport to another world when you're in a group for your static. For example, we have a member of our static, just one of them, that plays on a different server. And essentially, if we set up the Party Finder and they join our Party Finder group and we're waiting for a couple of people to buy pots or something, perhaps they want to come over and actually trade us something, we would have to literally remove them from the Party Finder group, from that cross-world party, for them to be able to talk to an Aetheryte to teleport over to then trade with us, or, you know, to talk with us in person sort of thing. And then we'd have to set the group up again. So this is a very nice little change. It's going to change things probably for the minority, like I say, but it is a really, really neat feature indeed. That's going to, combination with all of those 3 points, I think is a great way of tidying up the Party Finder system. And honestly, where could they go from here? We've speculated as to cross data center play, and the likelihood of that now is probably becoming more and more likely, judging by the fact that how much they're tidying up the service as a whole, because usually you have to, you know, work out all of these things before you go to the next level. So I live in hope that one day I'll get to actually visit Light Data Center from Chaos and vice versa. That would be pretty much the best thing in the universe. I was never a fan of the European data center split. I believe that they were splitting the smallest data center into even smaller components. So yeah, I would love to actually collab with some of the other content creators that currently reside on Light. It would be nice to do that, and also to talk to some of my fans. Anyway, if you missed this stuff in the live letter, hopefully this served to kind of get you excited for the things that might come in the far distant future. If you're as excited for 5.3 as I am, let me know below. If you have actually, you know, anything to add towards this, whether you think the idea that cross-world data center play will probably never happen, you'll need to let me know below for the technical reasons of that. I know a lot of you are a lot more technically minded than myself. I'm always interested to see the insights from those sorts of people, because I'm pretty much in the dark when it comes to that. Either way, thank you kindly for watching, and I'll see you all next time.